Hello and welcome once again to Talking Pictures Podcast. I'm your host David and joined with me as always my co-host Brian. Brian, how are you today?
Pretty good.
That's good, I'm glad. Before we jump into things, just want to remind everyone that we post new episodes every single Wednesday, that you can find us on all podcasting apps, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube we're available on as well. And just want to say as well, just make sure to follow us on social media, whether that be Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We're available everywhere, so just want to remind everyone just of those few bits before we get into business. But before we get into our main feature, Brian, you're going to take us through some trailers of the week. Well, not trailers, I don't know why I said it like a plural. Have you got a trailer of the week for us?
You want to redact yourself there, David, because yes, trailers.
Oh, you do have trailers. Oh, okay.
I just wanted to quickly bring up three, and we don't even really need to talk about them, alright? Mm-hmm. Apparently there's one where Sebastian Stan is playing a young Donald Trump in The Apprentice.
Yeah, I watched that just a few minutes ago.
No, I didn't watch it, but does it look good?
It looks like a genuinely good Donald Trump impression, you know? I think people go very direct with his current, how he speaks now, whereas this seems like it's a genuine, like, an impression of Donald Trump, not just like an impression for Saturday Night Live or something like that, you know?
Okay, alright, well, I'll watch it after recording this. Another trailer that came out that is one of my most anticipated for 2025. I've been waiting for this one for quite a while, and I'm probably not going to watch any more trailers after this. It's The Wolfman, or as it's just called, Wolfman.
I didn't see this.
No, you didn't?
I didn't.
No. Okay.
No.
Well, this is coming from the guy who directed The Invisible Man.
Oh, okay. Leon L, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I knew his name as well. I just thought to simplify his description, I just say, oh, the guy who did The Invisible Man, he's doing Wolfman. And Julia Garner's in it, and I mean, come on, like, at best this has to be decent, and hopefully it's going to be good, so I'm really looking forward to that. I like the trailer. It didn't give away too much either. It's a real teaser as well. But David, there's so many trailers that came out, but I'll only stick with one more, right? Okay? You a Minecraft fan?
I forgot that the Minecraft trailer came out. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a Minecraft fan. Like, I'm not like a hardcore player, but like I have played it. So, yeah, and I've seen the Minecraft trailer as well. What did you think of it?
I think everyone is gonna feel towards this movie what I felt towards Borderlands.
Disappointment?
Yeah, at least with the trailer, because I think it hit like. Well, I think it broke a record of getting the most dislikes in a trailer. So, it was a fucking shit trailer. So, excuse my French. It was an awful trailer. I think someone should get fired for making that trailer, because it's not funny. Like, making a goat eat and chew on grass funnily in a weird way, and then freeze when Stampede storms past him, and then he just goes back to chomping funny. Yeah, the kids think that's real funny, yeah. And just cutting to another shot of one of the characters saying he's such a tool after just introducing Jack Black. Blackjack is a character from a book I've read. But why is he a tool? You just introduced Jack Black. Jack Black's great. That's not funny. That's what that trailer tried to be. It just tried to be funny. So I think we did a little catch up there with the trailers. Just want to get some news out there on our thoughts on what's to come, because we'll be covering some of those stuff.
Yeah, I think the Minecraft one, it's not one I'll have high hopes for, but I mean, it's not also really going to be made for 20-something-year-olds. It's it's a kids movie. I'm not holding out. I'm not high hopes for it anyway. As long as it's entertaining, as long as my little cousins or my nephew enjoys it, then I guess it's a win. But we'll see. It's early days still.
Oh, that's the cue now to move on to.
Yeah, our main feature then. So we'll be very, very careful about this. So we're going to be talking about the sequel to Beetlejuice. Now, we can't say his name 3 times because I don't want him running around this podcast. That's going to just cause all sorts of messing. So we're going to be very careful. But are you familiar with this franchise? It wasn't even a franchise. This movie from the 80s.
Actually, it had an animated cartoon series in the early 2000s, I think. Or
Oh, I
something
didn't.
like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, the characters were in it as well, or at least the poltergeist demon trickster character.
All right, okay. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult to talk around this this character.
The character played by Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is the first movie. Oh God, this is not going to be easy. What was it? 1988?
As long as we don't say it 3 times in a row. Okay, we let's commit to doing. We'll say the name. It's Beetlejuice.
Yeah, let's not say it 3 times in a continuous speaking sentence.
Follow the rules.
I mean, uninterrupted. So okay. So I saw the first Beetlejuice when I was a child, without realizing what it was, and I think the earliest memory, the images that pop into my eyesight when I think about it is when Beetlejuice magically makes a zipper appear on Gina Davis's mouth, and then she unzip it, and she's saying his name a second time, and then he makes a metal plate cover her, and I think that is the earliest memory from when I first saw it, and I knew when I watched it as an adult that was this movie, but I couldn't tell you what the plot was, couldn't tell you what the idea was. If you could have told me that the characters died and we're following a husband and a wife who are now dead and trying to get the new homeowners to leave, like, you could have told me that, and I could have said yeah, but I wouldn't have known what it was. I wasn't even all that familiar with Michael Keaton as this character, and so I watched it as an adult, and I liked it while acknowledging it's a cult classic. But that was maybe back in it was definitely when I was in college. Sometime in college. Can't remember exactly when, but I watched it just recently in anticipation for Beetlejuice.
Oh, okay.
Cutting it close there.
Yeah.
So I watched the first one and I thought it was hilariously funny. And I realized the plot is not all that strong. You're definitely thrown into a world where you're not given time to question. You just have to accept what it is that Tim Burton is presenting to you, such as the nether world, as they refer to it in the cartoon, and what the concept character of what Michael Keaton's character is, and the fact that Lydia can see dead people. That's something that was clearly established in this first movie that I actually forgot when watching the second one, that she can see ghosts in the second one. An ability she does, as she said, did not come with instructions. And so I loved it. I think every scene with Michael Keaton in the first one is just brilliant. I actually laugh my guts out in his main introduction scene where Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis characters meet him. You sent me a link to it on YouTube there the other night, and then his final scene where he's trying to grope the legs of the woman and then her upper half, because she's all in half, he slaps him, and the way he reacts, he's like very exaggerative in his reaction. Like, she slaps him on the arm or in the chest, and he's whoa, like flips his arms out, he kicks his
jumping off the couch.
He says, sorry, didn't see her. And he sits over to the other guy. So I just want to say this one scene because it is the funniest scene in the first movie. But he sits over next to the shrunken headed guy, an IP that is definitely sellable in the second movie. But he looks at his ticket number, and it goes like 9 million something, and he looks up at the number call, and it goes from 2 to 3. Like, perfect timing to rather than just showing it at a stacked number, it goes from 2 to 3. I just thought that was so funny. And then he looks at the Indian guy next to him, the Indian who's clearly dead, and he sees that his number is 4. And then Beetlejuice goes in next to him. I can't say his name again. Come here, buddy. I don't know what he says. But he says, "Hey, look, there's Elvis. Hey, King." And then the guy looks ahead. He snatches the card and the number from him. He just throws his long extended number at the guy, thinking he pulled the rug out from under him. He's being made to switch so easily. I'm sorry. I just think it's so funny. The fact that he switched the ticket as if the guy's not going to know it, because he just throws it on his hand. I just think that is so funny. And then he keeps talking away as a, well, I gotta go to a photo shoot, you know. What's that about? So, and then he shrinks his head and all that. I think actually that scene was put in because the audience who test screened the movie wanted more of Michael Keaton playing that character. So I think that was an additional shoot to put in at
rather
the end
than
as a
having him
joke.
it seem as though he's dead, because when he is taken by the sandworm, it does seem like that's him gone. But
Yes.
having him there at the end leaves that little bit of room open for, oh no, he's fine.
Yeah, and you know, I think a lesser, not to be rude, but a lesser director would have started off the sequel with him getting his number, and finally it's his turn.
Yeah, I was expecting that.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think that's something Tim Burton would do. Like as much as anyone was hesitant to return to this movie, well, Michael Keaton most famously was, but Tim Burton wouldn't do it, regardless of how much he talked about it, until a story came to him. And yeah, it would have been fun. It would have been nostalgic that, the movie starts with him getting his number. You know, that's essentially building something strong in the second one that was a mere afterthought in the original. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like they didn't shoot that scene and he gets just this long extended number. Not thinking, you know, in 36 years maybe we'll start the sequel where it's his turn in the number, because it's his turn for what? Just to get past customs to the afterlife, because obviously that did happen, but now he's Beetlejuice or Betelgeuse. It's spelled Betelgeuse, but it's never pronounced that. He's already working in the office with Bob, Mac, Billy and Jimmy and all those shrunken head characters with those ginormous bodies, because, you know, they'd have to accommodate for the actor's head being in that, I believe. But those characters were very good. But he's already, you know, he's in the office, he's working, he's receiving notes. The people need me upstairs. You know, he's a trickster trying to scam his way ultimately to gain life once again, which, by the way, an action that was introduced in the original without any foreshadowing, I believe, which decreases some authenticity of the original, which goes to show how this is not one of the greatest movies of all time, the original, but it's still a cult classic, you know. But you know, the fact that he wants to marry Winona Ryder's character, Lydia Dietz, to gain life, you know, that wasn't really foreshadowed throughout the movie, but it's just all of a sudden that's what he has to do. That's what he wants to do. I know that's his plan because he's a trickster, but even though we're informed throughout the original movie that he is a trickster, we don't know what his goal is, even though and now we know his goal is to gain life. But you know, in this movie he's still trying to do that. He sees the opportunity because now Charles Dietz, the father of Lydia, is dead by the start of this movie.
I have to say, with the whole when that first trailer came out, and they do the whole, we're at the funeral and they're singing Deo and all, and it's very clearly that's what we're going to go with, because I don't know, well, some of our listeners may know this, some won't, but since Beetlejuice and the sequel now, the actor who plays Charles Dietz has been found guilty of you know, having possession of child pornography. Like, he's on the sex offender list and he's retired from acting since 2002. So I think when that initial trailer came out and everyone was like, all right, okay, yeah, no, that's probably the best way to to deal with this character, you know, is just to write him off, to just, he's dead, we're starting this movie now with his funeral. What I wasn't expecting was that just because it's his funeral doesn't mean that he's not a character within this film. And I have to say, like, it's probably one of the funniest and most creative ways of dealing with a situation like this that I've seen in any film, is dealing with an actor who won't and can't and nobody wants to come back, but yet still have the character play a role somewhat in the film. Especially when it's a film like this where, you know, being dead doesn't mean that you're out of the story at all. It's a main feature of the story is that a majority of the characters are dead. That's, you know, how the first film opens, is our two characters, played by Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis, Adam and Barbara, is it? I think. They go out to get something from the shop and they die. And we're following them through the rest of the film. So the way that they treated Charles's character, I initially, when that stop motion scene in the airplane happened, I was like, okay, that's pretty funny. I wasn't expecting this. This is a funny addition. But then the fact that he continued throughout the film to show up in the afterlife, but his head completely gone and half his torso gone, bitten by a shark. Very, very funny, very creative way of going about it.
And the fact that was that his voice box that was speaking?
Yeah.
Because when you could just about hear what the character is saying. Obviously, it's a different actor, but you can just about hear him. Like, I'm Charles Leach, I'm looking for my wife. You could just about hear about squirting of blood. Like, it was a great practical effect because it's obviously a stunt double or a stand-in actor walking about. Like, he's wearing shorts, he's wearing like a bird watching outfit, but like his whole torso is like, his heart is bitten off his body. That's how far it goes down. And he popped up a few times. Like when he popped up first, I was like, oh my god, and that was so funny. And he didn't have much of a role to play in the main story. He just kept on popping up a few times, and I thought his role was going to be what Astrid's father's character was going to be, Richard. I thought Charles Dietz, the character, was going to, because he's dead and now he's in this netherworld, that he was going to be in a position of being informed of some information or knowledge,
that he'd be knowledgeable of it.
Yes, and he could inform the main characters who are on the adventure, so whether it's Lydia or Astrid or whatnot. But essentially what Richard, who is Jenna Ortega's character's father, who's already dead by the start of the movie, essentially what he was. Because he was there working, stamping the tickets, working in the customs. And strange enough, I don't know if I'm contradicting myself, but even though he's been mentioned throughout the movie, I even thought there was a possibility that he wasn't even dead because they never found his body. I thought it was going to be there was going to be a reveal that he didn't die at all. He just abandoned them, but that wasn't the case. When he just popped up all of a sudden, and when Jenna Ortega was being taken after going through the swap places with the dead serial killer boy, and all of a sudden there's her father there, and I didn't question that, and I didn't feel like it was out of nowhere. I thought it worked perfectly fine, and the fact that Lydia was not too far behind her, and then all the three of them were able to come together again. I like that. I like the fact that happened. I like seeing them all together.
I didn't question it at all because I feel as though the for some reason the afterlife, the underworld, it kind of feels like one big building. It doesn't feel very expansive. It doesn't feel like it's huge. I feel like you could turn a corner and you're exactly where you need to be. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of... It's not...
It's a train station with some office rooms and apparently a police department.
Exactly, yeah. That's kind of how I see it, is that it's just one big government building. And I guess that's the kind of aesthetic they're going for as well, because it is kind of like immigration and the train station and that kind of stuff. So I didn't question it at all.
That's the thing. Just like the first movie and this one, very much so. You don't question what's in this movie. You don't question what Tim Burton is filming and what he's bringing on set to put in the story. You just accept it what it is and then judge it after. And I'm going to say judge, I mean judge the story. Don't judge the concepts or the ideas. The fact that why is some ghouls or ghosts or spirits. Janitors cleaning using products. Is there any difference while their skin color is different or not? Are all the ghosts in the waiting room with their tickets in the queue waiting to get to the kiosk? Are they all going to the same soul train, or do they get dropped? Just don't question it. Just have fun.
Yeah, that's kind of, I think, the best way to put it is that both films, I think the first film is 90 minutes and the second film is an hour 40, so an extra 10 minutes on top. I think that they're both like self-contained. They're both quick, tight films that just you have a lot of fun. I think there's so many times where you just kind of just laughing, that something just kind of it's random, but not like how, say, maybe like people would describe like maybe Deadpool, or how they would describe Family Guy, that is random for random's sake. It's like just genuinely kind of, because the way the world is, it's more so random because anything could happen, but it's still kind of in a way grounded, if that makes sense. Like you kind of know the extent of someone's abilities, whether that be Beetlejuice or one of the other dead characters. You kind of know to what level they can interact with the world. So when Lydia and her manager / boyfriend, Justin Theroux's character, when they go down into the therapy session and Beetlejuice is there, and he spills his guts, he scares your man, and then the baby pops out as well. It's like, okay, the baby thing comes out a little bit out of left field. That's a bit weird, that's a bit strange, but because of the context of everything, it's the weirdest thing there, but it still fits the aesthetic of what's going on.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, where I'm not questioning the fact that a baby Beetlejuice is there. I will judge that I don't think the joke worked. Or at least or at least I don't think it worked a second time. But I thought that first of all, Jenna Ortega's character Astrid does say that this place is very random when they end up in Arrakis, and I could not think about anything else but Dune, even with the sand moving, like the sandworms. Like they're not copying Dune, but the similarities.
It's like an homage,
But was it an homage?
I think it's one of those things, like, you're not directly referencing it, but you're like kind of referencing it. I think if you're doing any kind of sandworm in a desert planet, like, you are homaging Doom,
But even the sand moving when the worms are coming,
the way that it vibrates. Yeah, no, I think it is genuinely an homage. I
thought that when you're talking about when it comes to Beetlejuice, can't say it 3 times in a row. But his abilities as a poltergeist, limited. Like, he's no power until he's freed, essentially, and like I don't even know how he is able to appear in the model as a miniature, and I don't know how or why, if you say his name 3 times, you're transported to the model, but then if you say it again, you. No, apparently Lydia says home, home, home. So that takes you home. So I don't recall that being in the original, so maybe that was an idea.
It is.
It is.
Yeah, okay. Gina Davis's character says that. I think that when it comes to his powers and kind of that stuff, the limitations of what happens is just whatever the plot calls for. Like the fact that Lydia said home, 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 I was kind of in my own head of thinking like, well, she's not dead. Gina Davis was able to do it because you would kind of expect that some of they have their own powers and stuff like that. Maybe not to the extent of what Beetlejuice has, but saying home, home, home would take them home. But I mean, it's just like one of those things you kind of just suspend your disbelief. That sure, like, she says it works in the same way. So yeah, if you call his name 3 times, either he comes to you or you go to him, whatever the scene calls for, really.
I'm not going to go into these movies and just deconstruct and dissect.
Exactly. There's no point.
You're here to have fun.
Exactly.
I don't know if you're doing flashbacks, but depending on the time, I would like to get into why Tim Burton came back to do this movie, the plot, following essentially the 3 generations of Dietz, and might I say it that I think Dietz is almost now a famous iconic name in this IP
Yeah.
just as much as the titular character. I think, like Dietz. I'm gonna remember that now. You know, more than the other character, more than Mabelman, which is it Mabelman? It was Barbara and Adam.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't even tell you what their names are, but I could tell you I would always know Lydia Dietz, yeah. Lydia and Delia. But yeah, no, you're right, because you had said it initially, that like you had said it when we were talking about it yesterday, that it's interesting to go from that first movie where you are following the two main characters are dead characters, and in a way the Dietzes are, they're not antagonists, but they're an opposing force to the main characters, and they eventually come to, you know, cohabit. But now in this film, those two main characters are gone, and we're left with the Dietzes, and they're the main characters. And so now we're not following dead characters; we're following a very much alive characters dealing with death all around them, which is it's a really interesting way of just kind of changing the perspective, I suppose, of the main characters.
And every time all three of them were on screen together talking about either the death of Charles or having his funeral or anything else, or even something in relation to the demons or the ghosts, like, I just ate it up. I think Delia Dietz in the first movie was almost a bitch and almost unlikable, mean, and less of a mother to Lydia, whereas I thought maybe Gina Davis's Barbara was more of a mother to her.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, that's how I felt as well, yeah.
And she went, and Charles as well. She and Charles, as characters from the original, went from just about unlikable to nearly lovable in this movie. Obviously, particularly Delia. You know, where are these characters when they start off? Delia is, of course, she's an artist. She's obviously a self-indulgent artist who thinks she's something more than what she may be, really. But the fact that Lydia, your father left me. Well, he divorced you? No, how could you say such a thing? He's dead. You know, I like that she's that type of character, that
the world still revolves around her, even though her husband has died. It's,
exactly.
No, he's left me.
She's not the grandmother profile idol to go to for wisdom and maternal guidance, but I do love her. Like, the fact that when I didn't want her to die, but she died. She got, and it was done in a joking way, but they wanted her character to be in that particular place in the netherworld, to then be taken back by Beetlejuice to the church, which I already thought about this. Was it really necessary to do that? You know, I'm just gonna save myself from going into this movie and change a few things. Like, I'm not gonna really do that, except for maybe one or two things, but not anything with what they did with Delia. But the fact, what I'm trying to say is, when she's in the waiting room, it's like, I am not supposed to be here. I'm an artist, and she's like, obviously any other person would make the excuse that I'm not here, I'm not ready. But the fact that we know her character, like the world revolves around her, is as if like she's the most important person in the world, and she can't be here when she just needs to accept the fact that she's dead, just like how Charles did. Charles seems to accept the fact that he's dead, no bother, you know. What
I really liked about Delia throughout the film is that you never get the sense that she didn't like Charles or that she didn't love Charles. Like, everything she does kind of within the film is to mourn him and see his passing, you know, be marked, you know, because she obviously covers the whole house in the shroud, and they're having the funeral, and then she goes to his grave, and that's how she dies, is that she's like doing a ceremonial thing at his grave. It's not as simple as just, he's dead, and then that's it. Then she's just a character doing her own thing. She is, you know, honoring him, and they did have a love there.
A lesser writer would have made her just suck up all his financials and all his work, and, you know, keep it for herself. Like that, like the fact that they didn't do anything remotely like that. You might think she could be someone like that, especially since she's the stepmother to Lydia, not the actual mother. But the fact that
you would get the vibe from her in the first film,
yes,
but she has obviously grown through, you know, over these 30 years.
And the fact that it's also Catherine O'Hara, she's on a roll. I think it feels like she's royalty coming into this, and that she's she as an actor and as the character now is more important, or at least because of who the actor is, Catherine O'Hara, it makes the character more important. And they made the character more important, I think, as a result.
I think so too. When it comes to the first film, going back and watching it, I was like, oh, that's Catherine O'Hara. You know, like you wouldn't have thought that. But I think the same way, because I hadn't watched it. I rewatched it like you just before this film came out. And kind of in my head, I always like, oh yeah, I always forget Alec Baldwin is the main guy of the first film, because it doesn't look anything like Alec Baldwin. When I think of Alec Baldwin, I think of him now, or I think of how he is in 30 Rock, you know, like with the kind of silver grey hair. But
he's not supposed to have brown hair.
Yeah, no, it's just, and tall and skinny and 30 years old. It's just, it's weird. So seeing him, and then it's the same for Catherine O'Hara. You know, you're seeing her and you're like, oh yeah, that's you. You're Kevin's mom from Home Alone. You're in Schitt's Creek. You know, you're Catherine O'Hara. But in this, you're Delia, because you're kind of hidden behind that character.
I also still like that her hair is red. I thought maybe a little too red. I thought it was a too saturated.
Oh, very dyed.
Just like the rest of the color grade of this movie, a lot of things were very much saturated, you know, rather than just dried up goth. But I did like her, and I even when she knew that where she was in the netherworld, and she wanted to find Charles, but she didn't know how, so she knew she could call Beetlejuice's name 3 times, and she didn't even have to do that. He popped up because he already had a plan of his own. He was in the waiting. I like that he comes up and like, hey doll, because he remembers her and she remembers him, and her reaction is like, ugh. That is so much like Delia. That is what Delia would react to him. Ugh, gross. Disgusting. You know, I like that. I
kind of also like the first of all, the reluctance of her to actually go through with it. She's like, oh, this is the only thing I can do, damn it. And then the fact that she says it twice and then he pops up even before she finishes saying it, that it's kind of like, all right, he's trying to get to it, you know. It's like, yeah, I knew what you were going to say, like, come on, you don't actually have to say it 3 times, you know, that kind of way. Like, if you get rid of him, you can get rid of him saying it 3 times, but to call him there, like, it's almost like he gets a little notification, oh, someone's saying my name, okay. So I kind of like that.
It's like if you have to get your keys to unlock a door, he's already there with his hand on the knob on the other side, ready to open it.
Exactly. You know? Let's skip to this. Come on, we both know why we're here. You know.
I just also wanted to say that I like when, I think this is after the therapy scene, they boarded up the attic room, and that was Lydia and Delia locking up, because a character like Delia, you know, she's not to forget the events of the first film. She's very much aware of what existed and what happened, and like she's telling Delia, no one is allowed up here, because, you know, just like Lydia, she doesn't want Beetlejuice to come back. You can't say it 3 times in a row. I liked how she's informed of the mythology of this existence of the other world, you know, like she's not clueless, she's not ignorant, she's not like Justin Theroux's character before he's introduced to it, you know what I mean?
She's not putting it down to, oh, that was just something that happened a few years ago, we were all hallucinating or anything. She's not brushing it off her shoulder. She is firmly in the camp of, yes, all this happened, we can't let it happen again. Like, she is the supportive mom to Lydia now.
I also really like Lydia in this, and as much as I love Michael Keaton's character and Catherine O'Hara's character, I was trying to think, is she my favourite character in this movie? Is Lydia my favourite? And they didn't do a lot humorously or even creatively or unexpectedly with her. Because, you know, people change. I really liked her in the first movie. I liked how she was going through a phase where she actually wanted to be dead because she wanted to be with Adam and Barbara, and they, as parental like figures to them, told her no. And now she's grown up, she's made a life for herself, she has a child, and I like that. I like that this is the approach that Tim Burton made with the 3 generations of the Dietz's family. It's brilliant. Like in the original teaser, when it opens up in the funeral and the Deo is singing, and boom, Lydia, boom, Astrid, boom, Delia, you know? I just love that trailer so much. Because it shows that these are our main characters. These are who we're following now. These are the characters from the original now in today's age. But you know what? You know what I thought was I just noticed after watching the movie. It feels like the crossing of the threshold in this movie, the start of the adventure, doesn't happen until halfway through. When Lydia realizes that Astrid is gone to the netherworld with a ghost who was actually murdered his parent, and so she needs to rescue her. And so who does she turn to? None other than Betelgeuse, calls him, and he comes up, and then he brings her to the netherworld, and you know they make a deal that you have to marry me, and so that's I feel like that is the start of the adventure that I was expecting to happen when the therapy session started, you know?
Yeah. Well, before we jump into all that, do you want to go through some flashbacks very quickly?
Yes, I do.
Laura, play that jingle for us. Thank you, Laura. So, some flashbacks for Beetlejuice Beetlejuice.
Whoa.
Okay. So, flashback number 1. The model town has a car upside down in the water below the Winter River Bridge, representing the crash that killed Adam and Barbara in the first movie.
Gotta hit me with another one, David, because I already know that.
Okay.
No. It's only because when this movie starts, dun it, burn it, dun it, burn it, dun it, dun it, and then on and on and on, and that music just takes you back into the world, and you might not be bopping your feet or tapping your leg, but I had a big grin on my face. And when we just go back into the floating of the town, just like how the original opened up, and we're just following everything, and it morphs from the town to the models, because I believe it did that at a certain point. I did notice the yellow car underneath the bridge, and I'm glad that Tim Burton, I don't know if it was him who had the idea or whoever, or someone who knows how Tim would operate, that let's put the model of the car here to just maintain that connection, that
acknowledgement to the original.
Acknowledgement. I was going to say continuity, but yes, acknowledgement that this happened. And it's just a little tease as well, you know, like if someone who didn't see the original was paying close attention to this and saw that the car is underneath that, they'll either not notice it or think, why is there a car there? That must be an Easter egg for the original, you know. But yeah, come on, David, you gotta try harder than that, buddy.
So, flashback number 2. Did you know that Christopher Walken was originally offered the role of Wolf Jackson before it was given to Willem Dafoe?
That I didn't know.
Aha, gotcha. So yes, a character we haven't even discussed at all yet was Wolf Jackson, played by Willem Dafoe, who is the, I guess, chief of police, but he's actually an actor who has died and has taken on the role of the chief of police.
I don't even know if he's self-appointed or if he's employed by a higher authority. But
could be either, yeah.
Like, just don't question it, you know. Just go back to one of those things like Beetlejuice. Don't question it.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but yeah, Wolf Jackson is a ghost who is trying to live his afterlife as the character he played when he was an actor. Like, I don't know if that's such a Tim Burton thing to create for a character, but it's very specific and it's almost niche. Like, you could have come up with some other few ideas. I don't know why, but I only think about this now that he reminds me a little bit of Steve Martin's character in Only Murders in the Building, that he's almost a washed up actor, while also at nearly every chance he can get, he reminds whoever's in the room that when I was playing Bravos in the what he proclaims to be a highly successful show, but probably was mid-successful, you know, trying to hold on to the one good thing that he believes he had, and that's what Wolf Jackson is. Like, when he's given a speech to all his officers to hunt down Beetlejuice, and Lydia, because they've infiltrated the netherworld, he's watching his assistant, who's his typical cliche, stereotypical assistant, coming in with his coffee saying, "You're doing great, boss," and giving him praise and compliments as if she's paid to do it by him, and she's holding up signs for him to read off like a
reading his lines.
Yeah, like he's good. It's a very specific character to create for this.
Yeah. And I think
IP.
it fits perfectly well within the world. And I think Willem Dafoe's, it's good to have him kind of within the world. I really like watching Willem Dafoe, and he fits perfectly within it. But I also think that Christopher Walken would have fit perfectly in it as well.
Christopher Walken would have fit perfectly in it, but I prefer that it was Willem Dafoe. I think.
Yeah.
I think there's something about Willem Dafoe's voice that I think when it comes down to his voice. Compared to Christopher Walken's voice, I think Wolf Jackson just suited the characters for Willem Dafoe a little bit more, you know?
Flashback number 3. This is the third collaboration between director Tim Burton and the actors Michael Keaton and Danny DeVito. Can you name all 3?
Including this one?
Including this one. So you got Beetlejuice.
Dumbo,
yeah, you got it.
And Batman Returns.
Fair play to you. So obviously,
were you expecting any glorified cameos?
No,
or anything like that?
I really wasn't. That was something that obviously we haven't discussed yet. So at the beginning, Danny DeVito plays a janitor in an uncredited role. He's not in the opening title sequence or anything. Now he's in the closing titles. But
I didn't know who it was until you laughed. Until you chuckled.
Did you?
Yeah, we're watching this. The poor guy, poor random character, who we saw at least once more throughout the movie, but no more after that. So I don't know why we put some screen minutes onto that character when it led to nowhere. He drops into the hallway, goes up to the janitor. Janitor directs him where to go, and when he spoke, you chuckled. And it was it was when you chuckled, that's when I realized it's Danny DeVito.
Yeah, I just think he's so distinctive, and even his body. I don't think he even had to say anything. If he had just grunted, I would have known it was still him. So I'm glad that he got a few lines in there. But no, I love Danny DeVito. So as soon as he popped up, I was like, yeah, perfect. I wasn't expecting any kind of glorified cameos or anything of the sort. So it was a nice little treat to have.
It was nice, yeah. It was nice, but we didn't get. It's while we're on the topic of cameos. I knew we weren't going to get Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis, and
so did I. Yeah.
What I originally heard was that Gina Davis actually said, "Well, ghosts don't age, so therefore they're not in it." And I at least appreciated the mention that Lydia said that they found a loophole. And they were able to move on. And I fully believe that Lydia, let's say, because it's been 36 years since the original, so let's say 8 or 15 years would have passed by, and Lydia had those amount of years with Adam and Barbara before they decided to move on. So that's a whole aspect that's just part of her, but because it's not really mentioned much throughout the movie, it was not... It's not as if it was like 30 years of her life and then 6 years later this movie happens, you know what I mean? Like it was a short period of her life, you know. Like obviously she's mentioned enough for Astrid, her daughter, to know who they are, but not long enough for her to herself know them. Yeah, because she never met them. She never she just talks about them as kind of imaginary ghosts. Yes. And she's like, oh, we can't, why can't we talk to them? And she's like, because they're gone. And it's a nice way of just kind of acknowledging it, and you don't need to go into too much, like we were saying earlier, you don't need to think too much on it. It's kind of just said, given a reason, and you move on. And because they are not the main focus of this film, Never were going to be.
I have a bonus flashback for you. Surprise, you weren't expecting this. This was just something that I thought of. It was kind of funny because I'd said this to Laura as well. So Beetlejuice, the original, came out in 1988, and the following year, 1989, Michael Keaton starred as Batman. So big change to go from Beetlejuice to Batman.
Wait, he did Beetlejuice first?
He did
Then
Beetlejuice in
Batman?
88 and then Batman in 89. What's important about that is that last year, Michael Keaton reprised his role as Batman in The Flash. And now this year, he's reprised his role of Beetlejuice. So he did it Beetlejuice, then Batman. And now this time it's reversed. Batman, then Beetlejuice. And just for the fact that these are called flashbacks after the Flash film, I thought that was an interesting one to put in as well.
Getting really trivia here, David.
Love my
very
trivia.
Specific. Yeah, man. That is a great trivia. I like that. I knew where you're going with it, but the fact that, yeah, you're right, he did reprise his role. Mm-hmm. And funny enough as well, he's now reprised his role as Beetlejuice and Batman. He's doing what Harrison Ford did with Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and Blade Runner. So are there any other iconic Michael Keaton roles that he can return to after so many years?
Any other iconic? The only one that springs to mind as like the most iconic Michael Keaton role would probably be Chick Hicks in Cars.
What?
Let me just think here now.
Chick Hicks was in the green asshole car.
Yeah, that's Michael Keaton. Yeah, you didn't know?
I know. Yeah, I actually did know. And that character returned in the third one, but it was voiced by a different actor. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't think that will count.
I'd like to see him back as Ray Kroc from the, or is it Roy Kroc? Ray Kroc from the McDonald's movie. So no, there's no other ones that jump to the top of my head of reprisals, major roles for him to reprise.
I'm sure it's a rom-com then.
And that brings an end to our flashback section. Laura, play us out of here. Thank you, Laura. So yeah, like you had said there, just before we jumped into flashbacks, the kind of adventure part of the film doesn't start until, I would say, kind of 2/3 into the film. Like you said, I was afraid when those initial trailers came out. I was like, I feel that we're going to spend a whole lot of time in that netherworld and we're going to get too much Beetlejuice. I was actually genuinely afraid that we were going to get so much Beetlejuice. Because in that initial film, you watch it and he's very rarely in it. For a film that's named after him, he only has 17 minutes of screen time. And I didn't realise, something you had said to me was that Michael Keaton refused to come back if he had any more than kind of 17 minutes of screen time. He said, like, what we had in the first film was perfect. Let's do that again. You know, I don't want to you don't want to saturate it too much with Beetlejuice. Yeah. I would have thought that even in this film, maybe, even though it's still kind of roughly, I'd say no more than 20 minutes of screen time, there were even a few scenes here that I was like, I didn't need those. I think mostly those scenes come with, in relation to Monica Bellucci's character, you know?
Yeah, so this just goes to show how great of an artist the likes of Michael Keaton and Tim Burton are. Because the audience reacted well to this character, Beetlejuice, and everyone loved it and everyone thought it was funny and all the kids like it, and well, let's not be reactionary and just do more and give him more time, you know, spend more time with him to do all these wacky zany things. Could
have very easily been Jack Sparrow.
Yes, absolutely. So when I'm watching this movie, knowing that information, counting the scenes that the character that Michael Keaton plays pops up, I'm thinking you should be using this character strategically and sparingly. And so sometimes I thought you actually didn't need him to pop up. The fact that one of the best characters in this IP, one of the best creations from Tim Burton, and I'm thinking strategically put him in places in scenes. Don't have him pop up just to flood the screen time if you didn't really need to. Yeah. Now,
well, only I think I would assume that you're saying that only because you know that you're going to get him in a limited capacity, so you would like for all of his scenes, anytime he pops up, to be kind of meaningful or really strike a memorable scene. Yeah, you know, rather than have him pop up, randomly.
And I felt like that. I felt like I was on the fence up until when Lydia called him his name 3 times. Any scene before that, except for his introduction when he's talking to Bob. And yeah, because most of the scenes then between that when he's first reintroduced to then when he's called by Lydia is either to do with the therapy scene, which was a good scene but not the best, and any association to his ex-wife Dolores.
Yeah.
And his ex-wife Dolores as such a high of an introduction that character got. Very unfortunate that it led to nowhere.
Yeah, I think that it was a great introduction scene, and having her like staple herself back together while tragedy is playing, that's a lot of fun. But realistically, her inclusion didn't really amount to anything, because it was just a lot of scenes of her going and looking for Beetlejuice, and then she finds him, and then she's immediately taken out. She's taken out of the picture with the sandworm. So
yeah,
it just kind of it was she really just there to kind of give a little bit of backstory to Beetlejuice and how he died? Maybe. It just feels like not wasted potential, but it's just like, take her scenes out of the movie, don't include her as a character, nothing changes. You don't actually lose anything from the film, I don't think.
No, it is wasted potential. You had an idea, you had a character, you had a gorgeous actress, and you could have done something. It's just because they didn't even have a dialogue scene together in the end. Mm-hmm. They just have one line deliveries to one another, but they didn't deliver any. They didn't have a one-on-one, and she doesn't even find him until the end, and like she finds other characters. Oh, poor Bob. She finds dear poor Bob, a character who had his soul sucked, and it's just unnecessary. Because him, Bob, essentially, rest in peace. Him dying did nothing to the story overall.
No, none of our characters know that Bob died.
No, I don't. It was a funny joke that he made Bob dress up like Beetlejuice, as if you think you're gonna look at the back of Bob and think Beetlejuice.
Yeah, you've got an hench.
So I thought wasted potential is what I call that.
Yeah.
Because especially if you watch the trailers, you can get really excited watching these trailers, seeing these come up. She could have played up as a great villain.
Yeah.
In this movie, a villain before Beetlejuice is the villain in the end. And so. It just amounted to nothing, unfortunately. And like I said, such a huge introduction, and amounted to nothing. Like they didn't even give us a final scene in the end of this movie between her and Beetlejuice.
Yeah, in the same vein of the first one where where Beetlejuice is sitting in the thing.
Where the two of them would be sitting waiting, and maybe in between them is Justin Theroux's character. Whatever you want to write with that character, you can write with that character.
I think if you were going to do that, where the two of them are now stuck together, I would have thought it quite funny if you had seen maybe that they had been torn apart and they had to be stapled together. Do you know, like if they had to share a body and they were two heads on one body and they had stapled it that way and they were stuck with each other like that. I think that maybe that would be a way to go if there were to be a sequel after this. But yeah, I think that as it stands here now, her character, there's not much of a character. She was there on set. She wasn't a character, I don't think.
Yeah, and as a result of that, I think Wolf Jackson as a character is not easily identified as a wasted character, because Wolf Jackson did very, very little to attain his necessity in this movie. Because a lot of his scenes were very isolated and standalone. Like I think he had two strong scenes, one with Beetlejuice and one at the end in the church, but that's about it. And I thought that because of the obvious wasted potential of Monica Bellucci's character Dolores, it trumps the almost missed identification that Wolf Jackson was also a wasted character.
Now, two characters that we haven't really discussed too much on, which I don't think were wasted potential on the opposite end, were Astrid and her boyfriend. Well, boyfriend, love interest. The inclusion of Jenna Ortega, I think Jenna Ortega, obviously hot girl at the moment, hot commodity. Everyone wants her. A perfect fit within this world. You know, I think that when you see Winona Ryder and you see Jenna Ortega, you kind of go, yeah, they're related. You know, they fit a mother and daughter dynamic. She seemed to fit perfectly in with the world. I liked the actual kind of the divide between her and Lydia was really interesting, because when you idolize your dad like that and then you're stuck with your mom, but your mom has the ability to see ghosts but yet doesn't see your dad and can't speak to your dad, that is going to cause a rift between the two of you, you know. And it's I just thought that the rift between them was very believable. I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But I just have to say that her having the whole relationship with the serial killer, the guy who ended up being dead, that was I don't know what was wrong with me. Now I felt as though it was something wrong with me, and you said it. No, the film got you. You were invested in the film. You weren't expecting this. It was a twist, and you got it. I felt so dumb when I found out that guy was dead. When it was revealed that he was dead the entire time, I was like, what is wrong with me? How did I not pick up on that? Because when she goes up into the room and she sees the handbook for the recently deceased, and he puts it down to, oh, I got that in a yard sale. I'm like, oh, okay, that's the book from the first film. That obviously just went in a yard sale and, you know, just got misplaced, and that's a link to the first film. That's cool. And then he floated, and I was like, am I an idiot? Why would he have that? Like, why would the Dietzes get rid of that book? Of course that... I was like, oh, I'm such an idiot. But then you said, you know, I was invested in the film. I was convinced. You know, I thought it was good. And when his parents, when he's walking through the house, the fact that they were dead too, wasn't expecting that. And because he spoke to them and they answered him back, I had no reason to believe that either of these people were going to be... Or sorry, any of the characters in that family were going to be dead. The only thing I would question about that whole thing, when was it that Jenna Ortega's character Astrid, when did she gain the ability to see ghosts? Was it when she hit her head?
I think it was always something that she had. It was just lying dormant.
Maybe so.
You could say that because she hit her head, that made it so, but who's to say that? Who is to say that she never couldn't, you know?
Yeah.
It's not a question I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
And everything you just said I do agree with, because I didn't question the fact that, or the idea that Jeremy was dead. I didn't question how we obscurely saw his parents, and you only answered back with one quick line, because the character Jeremy said to Astrid that lives a similar lifestyle, that his parents neglect him. And obviously I thought, well, that's obviously going to be part of the character arc for Astrid, that she thinks she's a stern relationship with her mother, but actually in the end it's going to come to a nice wholesome conclusion, as natural with storytelling. But that's why I tossed that up and not realise foul play and mischief going on with this character Jeremy. That's why I didn't question. We didn't see the parents until Lydia saw them, and they both have the murder weapons still plunged into their faces because Jeremy killed them. And so that's why I didn't question it. And yes, it got me too. And you have to praise it for it. You have to give that as a great win. And I'm glad it got you too, because it adds another praise and approval to Tim Burton as pulling the rug out from you, not once but twice, because it's later revealed he was a murderer, and the whole family's dead, and Lydia saw the boy in the bedroom.
So I'm not questioning it, because even though she also could see ghosts, I'm seeing it just as two characters looking at another character. You know, you don't think of it in that way, that, oh, he's a ghost because only the two of them can see. You know, it's kind of nearly reaffirms that she is seeing the same thing that Astrid is seeing. Yeah.
I also just like that the strained relationship between Astrid and Lydia, yet Astrid is going to her mom to say, can I please go see with this boy? Like, she's still talking to her like a mother, and I like it when Lydia is acting like a mother to Astrid. But what I did want to say as well, another reason why I didn't see the twist with Jeremy coming, is because I was more focused on the hope that this plot of the movie between these two characters, this potential loveboard teen drama relationship that would not hinder the movie. I was hoping that, because this is something I was not aware of because I didn't watch the trailers. I was not informed of this character and this possible.
I don't even think he was in a trailer.
No, he was in the third one.
Okay, yeah. I didn't watch the third one. Yeah.
Oh, I watched all the trailers after the movie just recently. But what I'm trying to say is that I was distracted by the plea that this aspect of the movie would not dull, delay, or hinge negatively on the overall story of what we're trying to get to. Which ultimately, if I want to be looking forward to something, it's not for the movement and motion of the plot. It's to when will we next see Beetlejuice? Yeah. Because he is the arc pulling the ship. He's the anchor. Even though he's going to be used sparingly, it's still all towards down to him. He's the center of it all. Without him, there's no movie. So I was distracted by that thought process. That's how it didn't get me. And I like how it was concluded almost quickly, because after Lydia, with the help of her dead husband, they rescue Astrid and have that nice scene. They go back to find Germany, who, he's already got his thing stamped, but no, Beetlejuice is ahead of everyone. He might have his own self-interest in it, but he's still going to be a useful ally in the situation, and stamps Germany to hell. And that was great. And that was the F-bomb for this movie. I like that. I like that this character who you really cannot trust, this trickster who is only in it for himself, who will betray you in a single instance thought, that he is still an ally in the right situation. And I really like that. Yeah.
It's interesting because even though he is the villain, and you have two kind of secondary villains, that being Monica Bellucci and Jeremy, he comes out on top in all those situations, and he is always the villain. Even though I think, is it fair to call him a villain? Because I like what you said there, like in the right circumstances, he is an ally, but he is the central opposing force to a lot of characters. And I like that it wasn't going to be, I like in the end that Jeremy was dealt with by Beetlejuice, and it was as simple as that, as pulling the lever and he's gone, and Astrid is able to get out. I was afraid when watching that first trailer, I was afraid that the whole film, or a huge majority of the film, was going to take place in that netherworld, especially when we have that scene with Astrid and she's cycling through the town. She nearly gets hit by the bus. She hits the tree. I was under the impression in that scene, it's like, okay, Astrid is going to die here, and then it's going to be Lydia asking Beetlejuice to help bring her back and in some way get her back from the dead. But then obviously it doesn't happen. It happens a little bit later on where they do end up going there. But I think that for the amount of time that we spent there, I was happy with it. That I was like, that's a reasonable amount, because as well as that, it's not like once we go there, that's it, we're there. We go there for a portion of the film and then we come back out again, and the finale takes place in the church.
Before we get to the finale, what do you think of Justin Theroux's character?
I thought he was, I would have liked to see a little bit more of him. I liked him, I think I maybe would have liked him to be a bit more bumbling or a bit more nefarious, because I think it was obvious. It's obvious what he was doing, but he didn't seem like he was being nefarious. He just kind of seemed like he was someone that enjoyed the spotlight. But then when he gets the truth serum and he says like, he was doing it because he realized he'll get more money as her husband than her manager. Like I was like, yeah, I suspected this. Like, it just seemed like that's kind of his motive. And like, I was like, did Lydia really need to see that? I felt like Lydia would be smarter than that. The thing that I knew he was lying about was he said about the fiance that died, and only because they had said that, but earlier in the film he's like, I'm accustomed to death, my granddad died. And it's like, okay, well, if your fiance died, wouldn't you bring that up rather than your granddad that died 40 years ago? So I just I was a bit clued into that of like, he's definitely lying about that. But what did you think of him?
A needle in a needle sack. He was 100% a douchebag, and I'm not gonna fault this movie for making Lydia seem like a a fool for believing in him. I'll just accept it for what it is. It's a Tim Burton movie in the end of it all, okay? Yeah. And I won't even call it cliche, because 99% of movies where they have a hero have a hero's journey. So, you know, cliche, traditional, call it what you want. But I like that he was informed of the mythology of
everyone is
world.
involved.
Yeah.
There's no one that is on the outside of it, even though he starts there and he's in denial about it. You know, she tells him, I've been keeping this from you.
Yeah. He sees all the shrunken heads, bodies, and he's informed. I actually think we got maybe one or two scenes too much of him. And I don't like... Well, I can say I don't like the whole idea where he asks Lydia to marry him, and she first says no, but then is peer pressured into saying yes because marry me or I walk. And I like that Delia, against character type, I would say, is in a disagreement with it, and of course Astrid is in disagreement with it, but Lydia, lacking confidence, says yes. Like I'm not even bothered that something as silly as that was in this movie, because it's just a plot point to get to the conclusion, because of course this needs to end with a marriage, because they're building strength. They're making something that was passive nearly, that was secondary in the original, and they're making it a prime feature in the sequel, in the marriage. And he's not trying to marry Astrid this time, he's trying to marry Lydia still, built on the deal. And so I like I think homage of Deo, where the characters are forced to sing and dance while their facial expressions are trying to fight it off, because Beetlejuice has them under a trance. And you know, I wouldn't listen to that song on Spotify when I'm driving in the car, but I think the song was appropriate for the scene, and I thought the length of it...
I thought so too, It's not one that I've ever heard before, I'll be honest. Yeah,
and I thought the length of it was okay, because I appreciated the choreography and all that, and I liked it. I thought how best to execute a finale confrontation than what they did in the Deo scene. You know, apparently the Deo is quite iconic, so let's not use that as something in the middle of this movie. Let's do it for the end here. You know, he's not doing what Star Wars The Force Awakens did to A New Hope. You know what I mean? So
just directly kind of...
Pretty much, it's its own standalone story completely, you know. And I think I gotta give a lot of praise for Tim Burton for that. I really, really do. Like, I'm so delighted for Tim Burton it feels like Tim Burton's back. You know, this is the best Tim Burton has been since.
I was reading there that he hasn't directed anything since Dumbo 2019, but he also said he wasn't doing movies anymore. It was only kind of halfway through filming Wednesday that he was like, when he obviously met Jenna Ortega on that, he was like, maybe actually I could do Beetlejuice too. So with her, you know, she was obviously sparked something in him that, she could be Lydia's daughter. So I agree. Like, I would be interested. What do you think? Just before we wrap it up, do you think we'll get a third film? No, I think we will, just based on the fact that this is, I don't know if you've seen it, a very, very successful film. It's only been out a weekend. It's already grossed more than the original film.
I can't believe that we will get another sequel within a few years' time, given the approach of Michael Keaton and Tim Burton in this. I'm not saying I don't want it. I just think you could watch these two movies in an evening and you can just appreciate the otherworldly execution that Tim Burton has brought to this franchise, because there is nothing else like it. There is nothing else to compare this franchise to. Tell me, and I'll fight you on it, because this stands out just as much and as iconic and unique as the name Dietz, as I referred to earlier.
Yeah.
Like, it belongs to this IP. And like I said, I would have liked this movie to end on a nice, happy note. You know,
Yeah, I feel like the note that they left it on was sequel material. Like not oh, this is what's going to happen next. It's like something is still afoot. You know, something's still going on. And I think especially with the naming convention, naming the first one Beetlejuice, naming this one Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, it feels like the third film it's ripe for that. Especially with the what happens when you say the name 3 times. You know, I think that. I wouldn't be surprised now. It definitely won't be within the next 30 years. As in, like, we won't be waiting 30 years again. Physically couldn't. Michael Keaton is 73. So I'd say the next 4 or 5 years, I could see a third.
Oh yeah, don't say it, David. Sorry. We were ripe for a third Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie, even after No Way Home. And it doesn't look like we're going to get that. So I think it's quite believable that we won't get a Beetlejuice.
Fair enough,
3. But, you know, this movie did end on a joke where Lydia's having a dream where Astrid gets to meet a boy, have a baby, while they're building strength on their relationship as mother and daughter. But it's actually a dream sequence, and then comes back in baby Beetle juice. But whatchamacallit, that was a joke that I didn't think was funny because you know, you do it one time and I was already on the fence about it. To do it a second time, I was like, I wanted this to end on a happy, nice note, you know, a fun note for
the same way that the first one does. Yeah,
and then after that, throw in a funny gag scene with Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice. He's probably waiting again. Maybe do a bit of a replica where he's got another number.
You're back to that fucking hell.
I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. That scene is funny. That is like, I feel like I'm crazy just because of how much I'm laughing at that scene. Like, I'm gonna, after recording this, I'm gonna go watch it before I edit this. But you know what I did appreciate in the end, that Wolf Jackson says, "Come on, darling, you're coming back with me," because Delia died. So any contract or deal that she had with Beetlejuice is null and void, you know. So he brings her back right in time to make it to the Soul Train and be reunited with Charles once again. And just like in good true character form of Delia, she sees Charles, his entire upper body ripped off from a shark, and she says to him, "Look what happened to me, Charles."
2 little snake bites on her neck, like tiny things, covered by her hair. Can't see. He doesn't have a head. Can you believe what happened to me? You know, absolutely in character. I thought it was great, and it's a good finish for her, just in case if she doesn't come back. I'm surprised at the capacity she came back to this film. I was expecting her to be in the funeral scene, and that'd be it, really, not be a main character throughout the
really
film. I was expecting her to be like the special guest, you know, that you would get her at the start at the funeral scene, and then maybe towards the end, you know, in the wedding scene or something like that. But I was surprised that she was so involved. Now, I didn't watch the trailers. I watched the first trailer once, and anytime it was in the cinema, I've watched it I don't know how many times. But I was surprised she came back for the full whack.
Oh God, she brought an awful lot of charm and comedic time into this movie. I don't think you could have made it as good without her. But just on the reuniting of Charles and Lydia, where she's, you know, look what happened to me. I fully believe Charles is the type of character. Oh my darling, Lydia,
are you okay?
Yeah. You know what that reminds me of a little. It reminds me a bit of Gomez and
Morticia. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
A little bit like that in there, and I like that they board the Soul Train to the great beyond, to heaven, essentially, and you know, I like the Soul Train sequence, that sequence where all the souls are dancing to the genre soul music. Everyone aboard the Soul Train. I like it, you know, obviously just because they're souls playing on a word basis, that these are souls and the genre soul therefore play the soul music. You gotta just have fun with these type of situations, and I love that.
And I think that's it. That sums up the film, is that it's fun. It's an enjoyable time, and I think that's the same with both. I think that if you like the first film, you'll definitely like the second film. I can confidently say that.
Before we wrap, I think we should just acknowledge the visual effects.
Yeah, go ahead. Acknowledge them.
Oh! You're waiting for me to start.
Yeah.
I like the fact that they maintained some practical effects as best as possible, regardless of obvious CGI renditions. But with Beetlejuice popping his eyes out of his sockets and rolling out his tongue, that was in the trailer. Great. I can watch that now, like right now if I wanted to. When they're in Arrakis and the sand worm comes out, I like the way that is filmed. Like it's obvious it's on a set, but it's done intentionally, and it's not poor. You know, it's not poor quality or anything like that. And I like how when Beetlejuice makes all the churchgoers to, you know, have their whole faces and then bodies sucked into their phones. Like that's obviously a callback to what Adam and Barbara were able to do with their faces. You know, so I really liked. Honestly, David, this movie, you have to be crazy to root against it. Yeah, because what's wrong with you then?
It's just got some great Tim Burtonisms.
Yeah. And I'm so delighted for Tim Burton. I'm delighted for this. This is just a fun time. Not every movie needs to be doomed. Thank God, not every movie is Madam Web. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Have you got any recommendations before we let the people go?
I do have a recommendation, David. I have a few, but I'll just name one. I'll just have to remember the rest for our next Wednesday waffles. I recently just went back to watch all my favorite episodes of Love, Death and Robots.
Nice. Okay.
Have you
not
seen
actually
it?
seen. No, I've not seen any of it.
No, well then you'll probably just have to watch them all and then decide what are your favourites. But I went through season 3, then season 2, and then season 1. And I watched all my favourites. I tried to save the best for last based on the season I was in, just to you know end on a high note. You know, because not all of them are good. Quite, I think actually half of them are okay or just about. But then there are some that are just so good that you just love them for the world and idea that they've come up with. And then others, only a few, maybe some I can count in one hand, are so good that I want a feature on them, or if even a limited season on them. Like I love some of these episodes of Love, Death and Robots so much that, you know, Sunny's Edge or Snow in the Desert or Pop Squad, just named a few. You've no idea what I'm talking about, but yeah. Well, the fact that some episodes are 20 to 17 minutes, and then there are some that are like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Serious difference. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure that that new show, do you know, the one that's based on the video games? What was
Secret
the
Level.
name of it? Secret Level. That is done by the same people that did Love, Death and Robots. So
yeah. So
hopefully, if that's good and I enjoy that, and I probably will, it looks pretty good. Maybe Love, Death and Robots will be one I go back to, but it's not something that ever really kind of piqued my interest, to be honest.
So you're going. I feel like someone in our friend group mentioned it, and then I just
probably
started
Richie.
watching.
Probably Richie.
Right. Well, I must have a chit chat with him about that. But so you're saying you're going to watch Secret Level before Love, Death and Robots?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think so. Yeah. Well, like I said, Love, Death and Robots never been one that's really interested me at all.
Well, let me tell you this, David. If you ever decide to watch Love, Death and Robots, come to me first, and I'll tell you which episodes to watch in order based on the seasons.
From worst to best.
No. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to watch season 1, I'll tell you which ones to watch last.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying that is because if you get to season 3, the one that David Fincher directed is episode 2. That is just so random, and I don't get why. I knew he directed that particular one. I decided I am not wasting any glory of this show by just getting it out of the way first. I am going to pick and choose which episodes I decide to watch in order, and then I will watch the one that David Fincher directed last. And I was right, because it's the best episode of that season.
Well, I'm going to recommend then, if that's all right, I was going to recommend...
Well, sorry, I just want to say that I rarely ever ask you what are you going to recommend because I'm so selfish in myself. I think I identify as a Delia.
I'm going to recommend Rings of Power on Amazon. The prequel show to The Lord of the Rings. Season 2 is coming out now. I think episode 5 is coming out now this Thursday, so this is released on Wednesday, so tomorrow will be episode 5. I'm enjoying this one. I think I'm enjoying it a lot more than season 1. And
I think a lot of people are saying the same thing.
Yeah, and that's good. The biggest problem I have with TV shows right now is a show coming out, it not getting the best critical reception and it being cancelled, and that's it. You don't get to see any of the characters grow or things change. Like, go back and watch any of your favorite shows, and probably a lot of them have a rough first season, and then season 2, season 3 come along and they're great, and you really enjoy them, and they kind of hit their stride. So I'm glad that Amazon committed to doing a season 2, and hopefully now we'll get a season 3 and season 4 as well. I could see it wrapping up in a 4th season. I don't think many people would want it to go much further than that, but I am really enjoying it as a season 2, and the characters are much more developed and likable, and I'm like I'm always wanting, like, oh, I hope we get this character, I hope we get this storyline, I want to see more of everything almost.
Are you up to date?
I am, yeah, I am up to date.
What did you think of the Tom Bombadil song?
The song, I don't know. I tell you this, right? You asked me some of like the weirdest things. Like, what did you think of this particular thing? I'm like, I don't know. In the Umbrella Academy episode, you were like, who would you dance like? I'm like, what? I don't know. You just like picked like the most random things. Tom Bombadil was grand. I enjoyed Tom Bombadil. I enjoy that story. The Stranger and Nori and Poppy. Like, I enjoy them.
Talking about the song, you nitwit.
Okay, sorry. I wasn't.
The song. What? Man. Pop on YouTube after this and listen to the Tom Bob. You didn't listen to the song, man.
Well, I did listen to it. I watched the episode, but it's not like memorable. It didn't stick with me or anything like that.
It honestly brought me back to the heart of the original trilogy.
Okay, well, I'll have to go back and rewatch it then, because it didn't do that for me. But hey.
You just have to listen to the Tom Bombadil song.
I will. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good season 2. I don't see it as a prequel. I see it as its own rendition of this IP.
Fair enough.
Entirely. Yeah, like if they ever introduce Radagast Brown, he won't be a dwarf. I'm not saying I want that. I'm just saying that something like that could happen, and that also adds to the disconnect that this is a separate entity to Peter Jackson's stuff.
Yeah,
like they could get Giancarlo Esposito to play Saruman when that character comes into the story, if he comes into it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, no, absolutely. That they can be separate entities set in the same
they
world.
can. Exactly. Yeah. So good. Hey, David. Good recommendation.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it, man. And I have to say, I appreciate you joining me for this episode, much like how I appreciate our listeners to listening all the way through. Like I said at the top of the show, make sure to follow us on all of our social medias. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Letterboxd, absolutely everywhere. All of our links are in the description down below. Make sure that you're subscribed to us on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We're available everywhere. As I said, links are all down below. I think that's everything. Brian, any final words before we let these people go?
So much for a tight hour.
So much for a tight hour. We said we'd do this in an hour, but an hour and a half.
Well, depending on my editing skills.
Depending on your editing. Thanks, Brian. Beetlejuice.
No!